YouTube Turtle, and today I'm finally doing my winter wrap-up. Anyway, so the way I do my wrap-ups and TBRs and stuff is I go in like 3 months. So for winter, it's the books that I read in the months of December, January, and February. And in December, I read so many books. And then the other 2 months was just... So the first book that I read in December was Magnus Chase and, what is it called? The Ship of the Dead by Rick Riordan. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm not going to say really anything about it here because I talked about this whole series in my fall wrap-up, so I'll link that if you want to go see it. It's at the end of the video. The next book I read in December was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like this series was like really popular back when it came out, which was a while back, but I'm like just now getting around to reading it, so yeah. Anyway, if you don't know, it's about this boy Ethan who's lived in this small town like his whole life, and then this girl moves to town, Lena, and there's all these rumors going around about her being a witch and having powers and all of this stuff, and things just start happening. So she's actually a caster, which is like their term for it, and she's counting down to her 16th birthday when she's either going to become good or bad, in simple terms of what this book is about. But it was really good, and I really liked the writing style. Also, if you've never watched one of these videos of mine before, I am not good at giving descriptions, so I apologize for these awful descriptions, but I mean, all of these books are on Goodreads if you want to look it up yourself. I will put all of the book titles in the video description thingy. Anyway, next I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone because I started rereading this series again in December. Obviously 5 out of 5. I don't think you need me to explain what this is. Anyway, this was my 12th time reading it, and it was still just as good. I'm still currently reading the second one. I'm like 60 pages and I think I haven't picked it up in like a month because I've barely been reading anything at all. Next, I read Otherworld by Jason Segel. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about this virtual reality game. The main character, Simon, is trying to get to his best friend, Kat, who is in the game. He's trying to get her to talk to him because they had kind of like a falling out a while back, and he's using the game to try to communicate with her. But then it takes a very different direction when Kat ends up in a coma, and for Simon to save her, he has to travel into this virtual reality world that isn't as safe and as like video gamey as the creators of it made it out to be. Next, I read Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This book, 5 out of 5 stars. It takes place in this futuristic world where certain technologies are available that if you lose a limb or something, you can get a like robotic part that's kind of like what we have today, but it's a lot more advanced because it's like connected to their brains, I'm pretty sure. And they're called cyborgs because as advanced as this technology is, they consider people with these robotic parts as like not fully human anymore. So the main character, Cinder, is one of these cyborgs. There's also this plague that's like spreading all over the world, and there's people who live on the moon that are called lunars. And there's this like potential war brewing between the people on like Earth and the people on the moon. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but it was fantastic, and I haven't read the other books in the series yet, and I need to, but I've been in such a reading slump this year. Next, I read All Rights Reserved by Gregory Scott Katsolis. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Such an interesting concept. So in this world, once you turn 15, like free speech just isn't a thing anymore. They like put this cuff on you that I guess is somehow linked to your brain maybe, and it can detect any verbal language you speak, any nonverbal ways of communication, and it like charges you money for that. Most people are in a ton of debt because you can't just never talk. I mean, a lot of people just stop talking and rarely talk anymore. So the main character has to give a speech on her 15th birthday as like, it's kind of like a ceremony as like somebody's first spoken paid words, but she ends up refusing to do the speech and just like will not speak, and the story takes off from there. Next, I read How to Disappear by Anne Stampler. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it was kind of a disappointment. I still enjoyed it, but I was expecting it to have more of like a psychological thriller-y feel to it. It's in dual perspective between this girl and this boy. And this girl is on the run, and the boy, his father was like a hitman or something, and so the boy gets tasked with like finding this girl and killing her, or they're like going to hurt his mom. I liked the concept of the story, but it just like wasn't as intense as I wanted it to be, and it also had like this whole insta-love thing going on. I feel like it could have been executed better. Next, I read The Becoming of Noah Shaw by Michelle Hodkin. This is the spin-off to the Mara Dyer series that is in Noah's point of view. I have an entire spoiler-free book review if you want more information on this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then the last book that I read in 2017 in December, I actually finished this at 11:59 p.m. right before 2018 started, was Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I love Kale now. I didn't like him all that much before this book. Obviously there's problematic things surrounding this book that people have pointed out across YouTube, but I still really enjoyed reading it. If you want additional thoughts, I have a spoiler-free review. Then we get to January, where I read 3 books. One was Beautiful Darkness, the sequel to Beautiful Creatures. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was really slow, up until about the last like 100 pages maybe. But I have heard that you have to make it through this book to get to the last 2, because the last 2 are like amazing, and the second one like really suffers from like second book syndrome or whatever it's called. And so that was true. Like, it's important to the series, but it was a struggle sometimes, and it took me so long to read. Then I read We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. I read this in 1 sitting. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. At first I didn't think I was really gonna like it because the writing style just didn't click with me at first, and then I got into it and I could not put it down. It's super short, like 234 pages or something, and I just sat there and read the whole thing. So this book is about this girl. Her mom died when she was like 3, I think, and when the story starts, it's winter break of her first year at college, and right before she moved across the country to go to university, her grandfather died. So she's really dealing with that and facing her past. And then a little ways in, you start to realize that there's a lot of stuff going on that is not what it seems. And there's just sketchy things. And that's what really drew me into it. I was just like, I have to figure out what is happening. And then on top of that, it was very, very beautifully written. Next, I read The Young Elites by Marie Lu. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, I enjoyed the book, but I did have trouble getting into it, and it was kind of slow for me. It could be because I had a lot going on while this was happening. School has been a mess this semester, and when I was reading this I also had the flu, so that wasn't fun. And I just had a lot of difficulty connecting to the main character, but I mean, I don't know. At the same time, it's kind of meant to be like that because she is this kind of like anti-hero protagonist. She has good intentions, but she goes about them in not always the right ways. So it follows this 16-year-old girl named Adelina, and in this world there was a fever plague thing many years ago that wiped out a lot of the population. But if you didn't die from it, you were changed. So these people that were changed are called Malfettos. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce it, but that's how I pronounce it. And they have certain markings that make them stand out. Like Adelina, for example, has silver hair. Anyway, most Malfettos aren't different from all of the other people, even though society does kind of like shun them. But there are some who develop special abilities, and they call themselves the Young Elites, hence the title of this book. The story starts with Adelina in a cell, waiting to be executed because she accidentally killed her father, with her powers that manifested right before the story starts. Then in February, I read 2 books. Technically one of these, though, I read most of it in January, but I finished it in February, so I'm counting it as February. Anyway, that one is called Before I Fall. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, I enjoyed this book. I read most of it in 1 day, and then the last like third of it I read over the next week because I was back in school and stuff got crazy. Like the other book I was talking about earlier, I kind of expected this one to have more of a psychological thriller feel to it. If you want more information, I actually have a review up on my website blog thing that's linked in the description. There is a spoiler-free section of that, and then if you have read this and you want the spoilery stuff too, you can just click to reveal that part. But if you haven't read it, you don't have to worry about being spoiled. And the last book I'm going to talk about is Beautiful Chaos, the third book in the Beautiful Creatures series. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, definitely the best in the series so far. Like, I read this book so fast, it was so good. I already talked about this series, not very well about it, but and I can't say much about like books 2 and 3 if you don't know anything about book 1. Yeah. So now for my spring TBR. I'm currently reading Rain the Earth. I'm like halfway through it. I've been reading this for literally forever, but it's just because I haven't had time to read, because it's really good. I don't really know too much of what I'm going to be reading, because I just have so much going on with school and my own book that I don't know what I'm going to be in the mood for. I will be reading, and I hope to read over spring break, before I have to go back, is Restore Me by Tahara Mafi. Oh, I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited. Look how beautiful this cover is. I'm so excited to read it. I need it now. But I need to finish Rain the Earth first, because it's due back to the library soon. I'm also going to be reading some ARC books that I recently received, so yeah. Let me know what books you've read recently, and what are you planning to read in these next couple of months. Thank you so much for watching. All of my social media and website links are in the description below, as well as the list of titles for all the books I discussed today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!